Everyone, should I turn it up a little? Don't want to turn it up too high. So can everyone take their place now so we can begin? That'd be great. We have a lot to cover tonight. So happy to see all of you. Welcome. If anybody's new tonight, we welcome you back as well. Tonight we're going to actually complete our whole session since we came back in January, 1st of January. We've been covering the sacraments, and tonight's the last presentation, which is the Sacrament of Matrimony, which is kind of great because probably collectively here we know more about this sacrament than we know about any of the others, right? So anyway, but tonight I've asked a few people to share with you their perspective on it. And I'll be sharing some ideas as well. And you'll have a chance to talk to one another too. So let us begin with a little prayer and then we'll be on our way. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So let's take a moment from rushing to get here tonight to just center yourself. And just to focus inward and to intentionally put ourselves in God's presence. Loving God, we thank you for gathering us all together tonight on this beautiful Tuesday evening. And we are most grateful for this beautiful sacrament between a man and a woman that unites us and brings us forward into a new relationship in you. And tonight as we speak about this, help us to understand maybe some things that have never come to light before and to deepen our love for one another and our families. And tonight we just lift up and pray for those that are all going through RCIA, not only in our diocese but all over the world. Help us always to remember that we are not alone in this journey, that many, many people are with us along the way. And we thank you for your beautiful sacraments and for being with us in this very real way. And we make this in all our prayers in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. I'm just debating, should I go get my notes or shouldn't I get my notes? No, I won't get my notes. Okay. We want to talk tonight about this beautiful sacrament of matrimony. First of all, by starting out with some facts about the sacrament itself. So I have my fun little video that I want to show you all. So I'm going to start with that and then we'll branch off into a deeper discussion.
I'm Catholic and I'm getting married next year. With everything else I have to worry about, why is it important that I have a Catholic wedding?
These days, the sacrament of matrimony, or marriage in the Catholic Church, can raise a lot of questions for a bride and groom-to-be. Everything from, why does it have to be a Catholic wedding? To, why does the Church require marriage preparation? To, why are we talking about children already? We're only just engaged. In this video, we'll attempt to answer those questions. We'll talk about what a marriage in the Catholic Church is all about and discuss how including God in your marriage can make all the difference.
The vocation of marriage is written in the very nature of man and woman, as they came from the hand of the Creator. Marriage is not purely a human institution.
Catholics describe marriage as a vocation, a call from God to live our lives in a certain way. It's not merely getting an official piece of paper with both your names on it, or the next logical step if you've been dating a while. Marriage is the permanent, faithful, and fruitful union of a man and a woman who have entered into a covenant relationship of love with one another and with God. Our society might easily define marriage as a contract between two people that has conditions and may be terminated under certain circumstances. But for Catholics, the marriage covenant is, as we pray in the wedding ceremony, sealed and strengthened by God and may not be dissolved. The couple pledge unconditional love for the rest of their lives. That's why we say it's for life or permanent. So a civil marriage, one that doesn't involve the church, is a very different thing from the sacrament of marriage. So much so that the church essentially doesn't consider a couple to be really married in that case. We would view a couple that is only civilly married in the same way we would view a boyfriend and girlfriend living together. As Catholics, we're asked to keep God present in every part of our lives, in work, family, activities we do, and choices we make. Why would an important lifelong commitment like marriage be any different?
Why does it take so long to get married in the Catholic Church?
Remember, marriage is a sacrament, so just like communion and confirmation, there needs to be time spent in preparing for it. And, similar to ordination, marriage is a vocation for life. If you were choosing the color of shirt you were going to wear for the rest of your life, or the kind of car you were going to drive, wouldn't you spend some time considering your decision? That's why we want to make sure a couple is well prepared for marriage, to prevent something impulsive or hasty from occurring. Couples wishing to marry in the Catholic Church are usually asked to meet with a priest or someone from the church staff at least 6 to 12 months before the wedding.
What kind of advice can a celibate priest give to a couple about marriage?
Priests get this question a lot, and it would be a fair question if marriage preparation only consisted of a priest telling an engaged couple how best to live their married life. It doesn't. Priests provide a spiritual component of marriage prep, but in most cases, lay people, married couples, are the primary guides in Catholic marriage preparation.
So what exactly is Catholic marriage preparation?
Marriage preparation isn't just some time-consuming, burdensome hoop that the church makes couples jump through, but rather a tool to help them create a loving, faithful, and lifelong marriage from the very beginning. This process, sometimes called pre-Cana, is a little different in each diocese, but in general will include the spirituality of marriage, reflections on raising children, practical things like finances, communication, and problem solving, and some focus on the benefits of natural family planning. The most important part of this process, however, is preparing the couple to truly mean what they will say during their wedding ceremony. Unlike at Mass, where it's the priest's duty to know and understand the prayers and blessings inside and out, what makes the sacrament of matrimony valid are the promises made by the bride and groom. Have you come here freely and without reservation to give yourselves to each other in marriage? Will you love and honor each other as husband and wife for the rest of your lives? Will you accept children lovingly from God and bring them up according to the law of Christ and His church? Do you promise to be true to each other in good times and bad, in sickness and health, to love and honor each other all the days of your lives? Do you know what it means to say yes to these questions for life, and can you? Because if not, the sacrament is literally invalid. You are the ministers of the sacrament. It all hangs on you. So that's why it's important to discuss all of these intentions and promises in detail during marriage preparation, so the couple can fully understand what they're committing to and make sure they're both absolutely ready on the day they say, "I do."
What do our future kids have to do with anything? And why does the church even insist we have children?
Remember how we defined marriage? Permanent, faithful, and fruitful love. Here's where the fruitful part comes in. The church teaches that the sacrament of matrimony has two equally important purposes: the uniting of husband and wife through a total gift of self, and the procreating and educating of children born as the fruit of their love.
The couple, while giving themselves to one another, give not just themselves, but also the reality of children, who are a living reflection of their love, a permanent sign of conjugal unity, and a living and inseparable synthesis of their being a father and a mother.
It's not just about two people. It's about the family those two will create together. A husband and wife are asked to openly accept and welcome children into their lives, thus becoming a family. In fact, this is a requirement for a Catholic marriage. If an engaged couple won't even consider having children, they cannot celebrate the Catholic Sacrament of Matrimony. Why? Because marriage is about selfless love. When a couple becomes parents, they are then truly at the service of others. An important and rewarding part of this sacrament is two parents handing their moral, spiritual, and faith life over to their children. It's what we refer to as the domestic church. In other words, faith begins at home.
Wait, I have more questions.
We'll answer more common questions about Catholic marriage in another Sacraments 101 video. But for now, the most important thing to remember is that the sacrament of matrimony is a sacred bond that mirrors the unconditional and everlasting love that God has for all His creation.
And just as he said, we will have another video after the break that has a few more questions on it. But at this time, I was just going to ask my friends Tom and Donna McDonald to come up, and they're going to share their marriage story with you. Yay! Let me see if this is working. There you go.
Married 48 years, and we were married young. I was almost 21. Donna was 21, just a little bit. I like older women, you know. Maybe she likes younger men, I don't know. But the thing is, I got married, graduated from college, and took my first job as an engineer all in 1 month. So it was quite a bit of adjustments there. We knew we loved each other, and we took our vows seriously, but we did not have a clue what we were getting into. We got a few props. That's actually the wine glass from our wedding reception right there.
That day was a special day for us because I had dreamed forever of marrying the perfect Prince Charming. But when I first met Tom at 16, he wasn't my ideal Prince Charming at all. I was looking for somebody who was looking more like my father, dark hair, handsome, taller. Tom was short and blonde, and he was not the Prince Charming in my imagination. Anyway, after dating many other guys and comparing, I knew that Tom was the right one for me, and I have not ever regretted marrying this wonderful man.
Lucky girl.
I am a lucky girl. I feel that way. I feel very blessed. If you were at Mass on Sunday with Father Dave's homily, he was talking about vocations and how this sacrament is our vocation and how we are to be a sign of God's love through our vocation. God is the center of our marriage. That's very, very important, and that's part of the sacrament, that we do have God as part of our relationship. It's not a contract, it's a covenant, which means it's permanent. And our relationship should be primary, that we should put our marriage before anything else, our ambitions, our work, our friends, our parents, even our children. But the best gift that we can give our children is a good marriage. And so that's helping our family that way. The sign of our marriage is not the ring, totally. It's the vows that we promise to be true to each other in good times and bad for the rest of our lives. And that is a way of reflecting Jesus' love. We're witnessing that to everyone in the world.
You know, when we tell others we've been married 48 years, and this has happened several times, they always say, what's your secret? Like there's this secret out there. you know. And I always tell them very seriously, it's simply putting your spouse ahead of yourself. It's just that simple, and it's that hard. And we were on vacation, I think this last summer, and there's this new little married couple there where we were. And that question came up, and I said that. And the little bride, she just lit up like a light bulb, you know, when she heard that. And her husband kind of looked a little puzzled. You know? It's kind of a classic reaction, I think, to it. But it is true. You know, we're all made in the image and likeness of God. And in the first letter of John, he says, God is love. Pure, straight-through love. So innate in us, I think, is the need to love other people. And most of us reflect that, or eventually in marriage. There's different types of love. The Greeks had several different words describing different types of love. For instance, erotic love being the physical, sexual attraction. Filial love, which is kind of a brotherly love or just a friendship. And then there's really the crowning type of love, which is agape love, which is, as he mentioned actually in the video briefly, it's a self-giving, selfless love. That's the love where you put your spouse ahead of yourself. If both people in the marriage can do that, it cannot fail. I can't imagine how it could fail. However, a lot of marriages today do fail, and I think the reason is our culture preaches exactly the wrong thing. It's about selfishness, being yourself first and foremost, and that's poison to a marriage. There's the thing is, at least with us, and I think most people, we were first attracted, I was attracted to her, at least. So she was a good-looking gal, you know, and still is, by the way. And so there was that you might say, the erotic type love. And then that led to a friendship, and eventually to marriage. How she looked at me, I'm not real sure. Maybe it was a little different, but anyway, she grew to love me. She was awakened, you see. But it's actually that she does. I had to pursue her a lot, but I kept doing it. The thing is, this agape or self-giving love, for a lot of us and for me, did not come natural. When our marriage first began, in the early years, maybe I had a little of it, but it through the grace of God in this sacrament, that grows. And that's the glue, I think, that holds the marriage together and makes it a happy marriage, which we have. We have a wonderful marriage. We're blessed. So I hope as we go through our story here, you can see how, in particular, that grace, in particular, towards this self-giving love, kind of weaves its way through. I hope it shows up anyway. We'll try to point it out a bit. In any marriage, the couple comes together from two completely different histories. And who you are, to a large extent, is a product of your history, your family history, how you related to your parents and your brothers and sisters and so forth. In my case, I was essentially an only child. My brother was 18 years older than I was, and nothing in between, and I really had to be a surprise, I'm sure. But at any rate. So you could say, you know, this bred kind of a self-centeredness in me. My parents were older than most people would be when they have a child. And as a result, in my family environment, it's kind of quiet. Not a lot of brothers and sisters running around and so forth. And I guess for some reason I became very disciplined, studious, and to some extent ambitious. Had a very keen interest in science, and so that was developed for some reason in that environment. My father was crippled, and he was older, so I wasn't able to do much with him like a normal father-son relationship would be. And I loved all things of the ocean, especially fishing, skin diving, and so forth, but I couldn't do them, because I basically couldn't get down there, and I couldn't do them with him. So that will play a little bit of a part as you see our relationship evolve, because when I got married, now I could do these things, you see. But it gets out of proportion. We were both practicing Catholics. I was a very weak Catholic. I went to church once a week. I was public school educated. And so you'll see there's a contrast there. Also, I never knew my grandparents. I did not have a lot of depth in family relationships, and this is in contrast to Donna. So we had a collision, in other words, of our histories. That's what happened.
I am from a good Catholic family, the oldest of 6. I went through 12 years of Catholic school. I was very close to my family. My grandmother taught me a lot of the domestic skills that I still enjoy today, cooking, baking, and sewing, and knitting, and all of those kind of things. I had to learn how to share because we didn't have a lot. Christmas, got a bicycle, but it was for my brother and my sister and I. So guess who got to ride the bike the most? My brother. Anyway, so I was used to sharing. Unfortunately, when I was 16, my mother was in the hospital for 2 years, and I instantly became the mother, quote, of 5 siblings. And so I had to learn to drive. I had to take them to school, Catholic schools, both ends of the San Fernando Valley. Cook for them, do the laundry, clean the house, do the grocery shopping. I instantly had a lot of responsibility. So I knew how to take care of a family. I think that helped me to become very strong in my faith at that time because I was in a Catholic school and I spent a lot of time in chapel. I really depended on the Lord then. He helped me to grow, and my faith became part of me at that time. And so then I really practiced my faith. My father had a temper, Irish man. My mother was a German, stubborn. And there were a lot of arguments, and I hated the screaming and the yelling, and I did not want that in my life. I don't like to feel angry. I don't like to confrontation. I want peace at any price, so that was very much part of who I am. And so that's where I was coming from.
So you can see problems are on the horizon. And I would say thank goodness, because it's through these problems and through the grace of the sacrament dealing with them that we grew. And we overcame an awful lot of things that could have just kind of smoldered along, if they weren't brought to the surface. In the early years, my first job, engineer, I was, as I've mentioned before, I was very interested in science and so forth. I became an engineer. I was going to school, getting an advanced degree at the same time working. So I said all this happened in 1 month, married Donna. But to me, aspirins, my job became really all important. And again, it's something that was out of priority. Of course the job's important. But I have a very over-exaggerated drive here in trying to be successful as a young engineer. And it was very commonplace for me to just come home with a nervous, sick headache, And I could have said, and probably also, there was a certain extent of this, that I had to support my family. And we were timing checks to the bank. Okay, we were kind of like broke. But so there was that too. But really, the overarching thing was his job thing, becoming very dominant. Also, now you see, I could do the things that I couldn't do as a younger person. I could go fish, and I could go skin dive, and I could do all this stuff. That got in the way of things too. These things became more important to me, the job and these other things, than Donna. Not that I really realized it, but it was true. So there was a problem there.
We had children before he finished getting his master's degree, our little baby. You know how it is with a brand new baby. You know, sometimes they don't sleep through the night, and they're sick or something, and you're exhausted. And I tried very hard to be the good mom, and not have everything fall apart at home and everything. And the frustration, sometimes I just totally was frustrated trying to be the ideal mom, the ideal wife, all of that. And then we had another child. We moved down to Dana Point, and we were able to get a home. And so then that became very important to me. I had this brand new, beautiful home that I had to decorate like what's in style, and I wanted it to be perfect. And so I was driven that way to be, the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect homemaker. And
she really is a good cook.
Anyway, I was concerned with the family, and that was my job, and that was my home and all of that, whereas he was concerned with the work, and we were building up walls. We didn't communicate deeply, and if I was feeling hurt, he maybe sensed it, but I wouldn't know how to express it, and he would say, "What's the matter?" And I would say, "Nothing." That was the answer all the time was, "Oh, there's nothing the matter," and I would go to sleep crying. That wasn't helping, and so once in a while, all of a sudden, how a dam burst? Okay, that's what would happen, and I would explode and cry. And we had this one issue that I really remember. He got so mad, he goes storming out the door, slamming it, and here I am with two preschoolers, and he's leaving me. Oh no, what's going to happen? And I'm crying, and I'm all upset. He's left me, and oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And I was so mad at him. I was so hurt. I didn't know what to do. So I'll go take a shower. And so in that shower, the rain of grace from the water just falling on my body, I prayed, "Help me, Lord. Help me to love that man again, and help him to, love me again." And that grace happened. We were able to reconcile, and that was a real eye-opening moment for our relationship.
I actually did leave. I walked around the block for about 20 minutes. But some of these differences that had been building up kind of surfaced quite a bit when we had children. So we have two beautiful children. And, of course, I knew nothing about children. Donna knew a lot about it, but I, being the control person that I am, or was, I still am probably, I thought things have to be done a certain way. These kids have to be in accordance with my ideal of whatever that may be. And one example I remember, our two little kids, they went to a birthday party or something. They're just little tykes. And they came home with a balloon, a helium balloon, one helium balloon with two little kids. So naturally, they started fighting over this balloon. Well, that isn't in accord with my ideal of the perfect family. And so I had a great solution for that. I marched the kids outside with the balloon, and I let it go. And they watched it go. I wasn't a popular guy around the house that night with either.
Father does not know best.
No, Donna didn't think that was good either. To tell you the truth, even to this day, now my son is 42. He still brings up the helium balloon. And my daughter will not allow a helium balloon in her house for the same reason. So, if you want advice on raising families, just talk to me. You know. Anyway, there was a major turning point. Now, for us, this happened on a weekend retreat for married couples. It happens in different ways for different couples, and when people eventually get to the point where they have a really good marriage, they have found this out somehow about self-sacrifice. Anyway, this was a huge impact on me, particularly on us. And it was only 6 years or so into our marriage, and even today, you know, I still look back on that as the turning point. And we became aware of God's love for us and his presence in our marriage. To me, that was just, you know, I never thought about it really very much. The nature of the sacrament really didn't hit me until that weekend. I realized there are really three persons in a marriage, in a good sacramental marriage. Obviously, the husband and wife, and God. He is there. He is always there, whether you realize it or not, and whether you take advantage of the grace of the sacrament or not. It's there. This deepened our love tremendously. And also, we became aware of our uniqueness. You know, some people, they get the idea, well, if you're married and you get real close, you lose your identity. And maybe we were a little worried about that, I don't know. But it became aware of the uniqueness and the beauty of Donna, in my case, you know, what made her the beautiful person that she is. And one of the things they mentioned there is God doesn't make junk. No matter what your self-image is, he didn't make junk, and he made you. There's 4 things that St. Thomas Aquinas points out that really are obstacles to a relationship between a husband and wife, really, or the relationship between you and God. And these are power, possessions, pleasure, and honor, or you might say pride. It's being looked up to. And I can fit the issues and the sense of misplaced priorities, I think, that I had up to this point in time. I could see power as a control, kind of a control passion I had. Success being important and really domineering me. And it also, I wasn't looking at her uniqueness with this. I was kind of blind to it. Possessions, well, we had a home, had cars, raising children. Well, they weren't possessions, but they sure cost a lot. So those things were also, you know, a driving force. And pleasure, for me, it was the fishing and the skin diving and this and that and so forth. And these things, not bad in themselves, but they're out of sequence, out of priority. That became important, too. And the need to get things prioritized so that now I see it in my life, God, in my relationship to him, is primary. Immediately beneath that is our marriage, and there is no conflict there. Our children are beneath my relationship with Donna, but we've got lovely children. We've got a very tight family. Somewhere down there, beneath all that, is my job. And I had that inverted and caused problems.
Darn, I have to tell you my hard faults, but I think I've already alluded to them all anyway. Power was I didn't want to be vulnerable and get hurt and expose myself, so that meant that I had to learn to trust. And so that was hard for me to learn to do. Possession, I've already talked about wanting the perfect house, you know, and everything beautiful. which led into the pride thing about, getting the recognition that I'm such a good homemaker, I'm such a good mother, I'm such a good girl, And so those were my hang-ups, and I still find that I struggle with them to the day.
Yeah, but at least we can recognize them when they get out of proportion. So we left that weekend. We were committed to change, and we also learned to share our deepest feelings, things that were, blocked by this wall that had built up. Reprioritize things. We started praying together, which we'd never done before. Well, we prayed grace, but before that, she would say her prayers, I would say my prayers, kind of thing. And that's when I started getting involved with the church as well. Prior to that, I had no real involvement at all. And so it was a real turnaround. We knew, among other things, that our marriage would not take care of itself. We had to work on it, work on a relationship, and give our marriage the attention that it really demands. And that still goes on. It isn't a freewheeling with a lot of momentum. So it involves understanding, trust, intimacy, passion. Still got passion. Communication, friendship. But I do, She accused me the other day of being like I was 25. She did. Anyway. But in essence, really, it boils down to, again, putting your spouse ahead of yourself. That is it in a nutshell. So living out our sacrament, as I said, thank God for the problems. It was through these problems that we grew, and we developed a certain sense of self-giving love. We are unique. In dealing with the problems together, it actually perfects our uniqueness. I kind of look at it like a block of granite, maybe, and a sculptor like Michelangelo. He would see inside that block the person or the figure that's in there, and he's just removing what's in the way. And it's almost like that. As you go through your marriage and you work with the sacrament that's in there, you start chipping away at that. And it is painful. You give things up, you reprioritize, it hurts. But there's a lot of joy that comes from it in the end. And you can't, it's like no pain, no gain kind of thing. You can't reach that point if you don't go through, the giving up of things.
Children grow up, they become teenagers. Well, those hormones start, and anybody who's had teenagers can relate to the mess of the floor and dropping the clothes wherever, or their shoes or their books, bags, whatever. All the little back-talking you start to get, the little incidences with teen problems, and feeling like you're their taxi driver or whatever. You're taking them here, there, and everywhere until they can get their own driver's license. And in fact, we had to, because our daughter was having anger issues, we made her wait 6 months before she could get her driver's license, which was a torture for me more than for her probably, because I wanted her to take herself to go to this activity and stuff. Anyway, during those teen years, we had already started to work on our relationship a lot better, and so we were together as far as working on and supporting one another with all these teen issues, and so that was a real blessing. And it was at that time that we heard a homily, and it was about the wedding feast at Cana, and how this priest pointed out something that I had never recognized until that homily. Well, in the miracle of Jesus taking ordinary water and changing it into the best wine, and saying how that every ordinary event in your marriage, Jesus can turn into something extraordinary by the graces that he's giving you through the sacrament. And so that really stuck in my mind about how he's there every day in all the ordinary things that happen in life, in marriage. and how He's there blessing you. And what a beautiful gift that is, that we are able to feel His love and be able to express that to others, to our spouses, to our children, to everyone that we meet. And we feel that the best was saved for last, because right now we feel like we're in a pretty good spot. We might be just getting ready for the next problem, but that's okay. God will be with us with His graces then. Thank you very much.
You just love hearing a love story. Isn't this great? Anyway, all right, now we're going to be hearing another one. So I'd like to invite my dear friends Joe and Judy to come forward.
So we've been married 48 years, so that's exactly the same.
Except we were older. We were older when we started.
Only 2 years.
Yeah. I need this.
Okay.
Interesting, Donna. I had the thought that us all sacraments, but marriage in particular, are a blessing to me, because it is God taking something ordinary and making it extraordinary. And just a regular relationship between two ordinary people can become a means of grace. And I like that. A couple of years ago, actually, when Joe went through RCIA, some dear friends of ours gave us this plaque, and it says, "Like branches on a tree, we all grow in different directions, yet our roots remain as one." And I like the analogy of marriage as a tree. I like trees, and I like marriage, so we put it together, and the different places that we have lived have had special and unique trees. We lived in Arizona, in the middle of a ponderosa pine forest. They were tall and straight and fragrant. And in Phoenix, we went back and forth to Phoenix a lot. I was always amazed at the Palo Verde trees. They're so delicate, and yet they survive in like 115 degrees. And Minnesota, where I grew up, the deciduous trees are so responsive to the wind. Even the tiniest little breath of air will make them chatter. Their leaves sort of chatter and whisper. And California palm trees, I think, are the most humorous trees in God's creation. The really tall ones that give about 3 square inches of shade, so funny to me. So trees and marriages every one of them is unique and beautiful and imperfect.
A scripture verse that helps us identify how a tree can be like a marriage is Psalm 1, where the psalmist says, "Blessed is the one who just delights in the law or the word of God." In fact, on day and night. And this person will be like a tree, and it's planted by streams of water that bears forth fruit in its season. Its leaf does not wither, and all that it does, it prospers. And then it goes on to talk about the wicked are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind drives away. So we're going to look at 3 ways a tree helps us understand marriage: planting and seasons, fruitful seasons, and then vulnerability.
Those who delight in God and who are according to His word are those who have the protection of God. And that could be said of marriage too. Marriages that are in accordance with God's purposes and His plans. Psalm 1 says that their leaves do not wither in times of trouble. but they learn how to prosper. And God is their help in doing this because they are planted by the resources, the deep moisture of God. Every tree has a planting, and every marriage has a planting. Some just kind of fall where the seed lands, and others are very carefully and deliberately chosen and come together as planned. Ours was of the deliberate sort. Joe and I both knew as children that we wanted to find a partner that God led us to. And so we grew up with that in mind. And we met in college. Our history... Yeah, Joe can tell you about that. Our histories were really quite similar, amazingly similar. Our families both originated in Norway, and all the little parts of his family's history and my family's history seem to intersect in the same little towns in Iowa and Minnesota. They didn't really know each other, but we had all that background in common. And the roots of our marriage, and actually our goals and values of our families and us personally, were also very similar. I would say that the roots of our marriage draw on the strength of our parents and grandparents, as well as on the deep soil of God's love. And we are not in this marriage alone. We weren't from the beginning. We prayed together before we even dated.
First date.
Yeah, first date too, but
We did in the Permian.
But we
But
were.
I was looking at you and not praying, I think.
Yeah, probably. I believe that now.
Like Donna, I was taken by Father Dave's teaching on marriage as a calling. And we think of vocation often as a religious person or a priest has a vocation, a religious vocation, but Father Dave reminded us that marriage is also a calling. And so, and with that calling comes purpose. And so I would say that my first calling, and Judy's first calling, is to be a disciple of Jesus, a follower of Jesus in community. And our second calling is to be married to each other. And that means our individual lives have a purpose, but there's a purpose for us, I would call couple power, that we have a destiny as a couple that's different from our individual destiny. But I like to think of my identity, first of all, as I am a disciple of Jesus. I belong to Jesus. I belong to Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And I sometimes say that when we're doing the sign of the cross. And so that's my first identity. My second, so I belong to Jesus. I'm an apprentice of Jesus, a disciple of Jesus. Chosen, Paul says in Colossians, chosen by God. The second identity or calling is to be married. And so I am Judy's husband. That's a pretty good deal. And that's part of my identity. Now, I am thankful that my mother, when I was 13, I don't know if she even would remember it, but she said, Joey, I think you should start praying for a wife or who you're going to marry. And here I am, this junior high kid, and I believed her. And so I prayed for who God would want me to marry, and Judy did too. And so we were an answer to each other's prayers.
Joe was in a Lutheran high school choir when he was in high school that toured. They came to my hometown. So, and I didn't even notice him, but I don't think he noticed me either.
You're like the best singer.
Yeah. Anyway, it's pretty amazing. Our paths crossed right at that point. Trees and marriages bear fruit in season. And all of life includes seasons that repeat over and over again. And so we don't just go through a time of new life once. We keep coming back to times of new life. And actually now that we are starting our retirement, Joe and I are in another season of new life where we're sort of finding out what our purpose is at this point. And even old trees get new leaves. So sometimes these spring seasons, the times of new life, can feel slow, like not much is happening, no fruit yet at all. And we wonder what we're supposed to be doing. And expectations don't always fall into place the way we hope they will. And so Joe and I are still discerning exactly what the purpose is of our retirement, but he is certainly not sitting around waiting for it. Anyway, it's a growing time.
So Judy had this dream, and I pastored for 4 decades Lutheran churches, and so I went half-time, and so Judy said, wow, this is going to be good. And then I stopped pastoring a church altogether, and she said, I had this I had this idea when we were retired. We'd wake up in the morning and we would think, what are we going to do today? And Judy thought, well, we could wash the windows. That has not happened.
Not on Joe's agenda. The season of summer, growing seasons, are also part of marriage. I grew up on a farm, and summer was a hot time, busy, hardworking. Everybody worked together and got very tired. But at the end of the day, we were happy that we had been together and content and ready for bed. The only rest we really got was rainy days. And during the summer, I remember my dad watching for storms, especially lightning that might start fires, and so in this stage of marriage, the growing season, the satisfaction is not in the product, but in the process. And things can be happening real fast, and maybe there isn't enough time to do a lot of communicating. And especially in the early years, that's very common. And so we have to sort of draw on the commitment and the faith that we have to keep our marriage fresh and alive in times when we're too busy to communicate as much as we really need to.
The fruit of a marriage, there is fruit bearing in the season of harvesting or fruit, and there are many ways we could talk about that. I thought, but I'm going to share with you one fruit of our marriage is this book. It's called You Belong, and it was written by our daughter Anne, and she is a sister to Heidi, and Heidi sings as our daughter also, and so Anne, when she was 17, gave birth to a little baby girl, and decided to have an open adoption. She was not married, and she picked parents for this child, and then she got married later, and her husband and Kong Hong celebrated the sacrament of marriage here with Father Steve at St. Edward. So Anne decided she wanted to write a book with a story of how she's going to explain to her 4-year-old daughter from her marriage, Camille, what adoption is. And so this book has entitled You Belong. And in that, the book is really explaining to Camille that when she was young, she had this baby girl, and she wasn't ready to be a mom, and she was adopted, but then she had Camille, and now you have 2 families. So you belong to our family and also the family of this little baby girl that was adopted. One of the interesting thing about her name is Rachel. When she was 7, she was Anne's flower girl in her wedding, and so we've been able. She calls me Grandpa Joe, and one other quick story. Now Judy and I are going to Norway. I usually go to Norway to teach in the summer, and Anne's adopted daughter wants to know the ancestors of her birth parents. So she's going to Norway with us. this summer she's 15. She'll be 15.
So after this growing season, there is a season of where there's fruit to pick and enjoy and share, and our children are a prime example of that fruit. But really, fruit can be any area of influence and any gained wisdom that we've gotten through our experiences. Anne really loves to think about the time of her life of growing up in our home. Our home, Joe is a Lutheran pastor, and our home was something like Night Hall sometimes, a meeting place, and lots of company, and lots of potlucks and dinners with company. And so Anne got to tell her third grade knock-knock jokes, at the dinner table with famous people. And she was an introvert. This was very shaping in her life for her to learn social grace and just to get the pool of wisdom that she uses today. The fourth season is the winter season, or a dormant season. Not much going on, but it's a time of reflection and rest and quietness. And for Joe and me, I would say that this season we are in when we know each other so much that we communicate without using words. There's a deep harmony in that kind of silence. Not a lot of conversation is necessary, but at any moment, one person's heart is open to hearing the other person's heart, and that's security.
Is vulnerability, or what am I talking about?
I guess you already talked. Yeah, it's vulnerability. Okay. Trees and marriages are vulnerable to storms and drought, but its leaf does not wither, but in everything it prospers. And the only reason we can do that, the only reason we don't completely wither, is because of God's support of our marriage and the strength underneath our marriage. And we all survive a certain amount of neglect and stress without withering, because we draw on that reserve that God has given to us in marriage. And then in the 70s, when Joe and I were first married, it was similar to Donna and Tom. He was a new pastor. I had a new baby. The other pastor's son, who was 15 years old, was Joe's brother, and our 15-year-old nephew was dying of cancer during the first 6 months that we were there. And too many changes were happening, and I had a pretty severe clinical depression. So some of the leaves did wither, but we did survive, and we came out stronger. Another period of storm for us was when our girls were coming into young adulthood, Heidi's college years and Anne's high school years. We've already talked about Anne's pregnancy. And it seemed like there were 15 years of one crisis after another until I didn't even want to hear the phone ring because I thought there would be some more bad news. My mom was living with us at the time, and she had dementia. Joe was diagnosed with cancer, and he was also in sort of a burnout as a pastor, just needed to take some time off really badly. And we learned a lot about prayer during that time. And again, we survived. We have some scars, but we came out stronger.
For sure, I am very grateful for people who pray, not just for us individually, but pray for our marriage. And so if you're married, and it would be good for you to, I think, intentionally identify and know who people are that intercede for you. We know Donna does. but also they pray for your marriage. And I learned that at Marriage Encounter, our 10th anniversary. And there I was one of the surprises was people weren't just committed to me personally, but they were really committed to our marriage. And so prayer is a huge, I think, blessing in terms of helping us make it in our marriage life. And Judy and I do have different ways of praying together. On Friday morning we do Lectio Divina. We've been doing that a little bit here, but we take the 3 liturgical texts for Sunday morning, and we just read them silently, and then we write down thoughts, share them, and then we pray the scriptures, whatever kind of what God's speaking to us through the scriptures, and so that has also helped. So I would like to pray for you, and I want to pray for the single people here too also who are maybe on the way to marriage, but on that journey, but and it's also for married couples, and it's from Paul's letter to the Ephesians, where he said in chapter 3, "For this reason I fall on my knees before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth receives its true name. And I ask God from the wealth of his glory to give you power through his Spirit to be strong in your inner selves. I pray that Christ will dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray that you might have your roots deep in the soil of God's love, so that you, together with all of God's people, may have power to understand how wide and long, how high and deep is the love of Christ. And yes, may you come to know God's love, even though it's never fully known, and so be completely filled with God's nature. And to him who by means of his power at work in you is able to do so much more than you can even imagine or dream of for your life, for the church, for your marriage. To God be the glory in the church and in Christ Jesus. Amen.
Are wearing down again. Here we go. Just a few more comments, and then we'll have some talk at the tables, although you've been doing that all along. I'm going to show you one more little short Busted Halo video that kind of gives some more kind of questions maybe that people ask oftentimes about Catholic weddings and why we are so insistent on the things we are. So here we go.
A lot of questions about getting married in the Catholic Church. Can someone please help me?
Hey folks, in our first marriage video we explained the meaning behind the sacrament and why it's important to celebrate a Catholic wedding. Here I'll give you answers to a few more specific questions that might come up as you're preparing to celebrate the Sacrament of Matrimony.
I would like to have a destination wedding. Will the church allow that?
As long as that destination is a church, sure. But if you're thinking about standing on a beach during sunset, most likely no. Everybody hopes that their wedding is beautiful, meaningful, and unforgettable, and the church wants that for you as well. But it's important to understand that a Catholic wedding is a sacrament. And like all the other sacraments, baptism, Eucharist, ordination, etc., it allows us to experience God's presence in our lives in a visible way. During the Sacrament of Matrimony, you will invite God into your marriage and be a public witness to the world of God's covenant of love. So while God is, of course, present at every locale and destination, what better way to show the world that God is an important part of your marriage than having the ceremony in his house? How about this? Find that church near your perfect beach and then get to the reception in time for the sunset. Now, in some cases, such as a Catholic married and non-baptized person, permission might be granted to hold the ceremony outside of a church, but you'll need to talk to your local priest about that.
What if I'm Catholic, but my future spouse is not? Can we still get married in the church?
Yes, you can. Only one of you needs to be Catholic in order to get married in the church. A great many Catholic weddings celebrate the union between a Catholic and another Christian, or a Catholic and a person of another faith tradition. All you need is permission to do so. How do I get that permission, you ask? Here's a good time to review the importance of beginning marriage preparation as soon as possible. Drop by your local Catholic parish and speak to a priest like me. I'll ask you some questions, we'll fill out some forms, I'll take care of the whole thing for you. Now, some of the questions I may ask are, in which faith community will you involve yourselves? In what tradition will you raise your children? How will you respond to extended family members of different faiths? And in what ways can you create unity in light of your religious differences? It's important that from the very beginning, the two of you are open and honest about your faith and spiritual beliefs. They will have a significant impact on your marriage.
Weddings are expensive enough. How come this sacrament costs so much money?
The sacraments are God's free gift to us, and therefore never cost us anything. However, in order to celebrate the sacrament of matrimony, we'll need lights on in the church, air conditioning if it's hot, heating if it's cold, a wedding coordinator to handle everything, a room for the bride to get prettied up, another room for the groom to stay sequestered, musicians to play, a cantor to sing, maintenance to clean up, security to make sure everyone is safe, and it all costs money. Your contribution to the church allows the staff to do their best to make this sacramental celebration a good experience for everyone who comes to witness your wedding. And since you're likely to spend a small fortune on other features of your wedding day, is this really so much to ask? Some churches will even offer a discount for their parishioners. So if you're not a member already, go ahead and join the parish. And if you're genuinely unable to pay the fee, talk with the priest. Most churches will not turn you away for financial reasons.
Why can't we play our favorite songs during the ceremony? Why does the music have to be so churchy?
The policies on music will differ from church to church, but they all strive to create a celebration that remembers Christ's love for us and helps us to pray for your marriage.
Music for the celebration of marriage not only adds beauty and dignity to the ceremony, but it has a more important liturgical function. Music should reflect and communicate, above all, the mystery of God's love in Jesus, especially as it pertains to the couple joined together in marriage.
While popular love songs are nice, they usually don't meet the criteria that the church has for music at Mass. However, they would be great to play at the reception.
What if we're already living together? Can we still get married in the church?
The answer is yes. Living together is not a deal breaker, but let's be real. The issue is not sharing a mailing address, it's about sex. Remember that marriage is a covenant, and sex is reserved for those who have entered into that permanent, faithful, and fruitful covenant relationship sealed by God. What I always say to couples living together is, give yourself some time and space to truly prepare for that lifelong commitment you're about to make. Find a temporary roommate, move in with mom and dad, sleep in another room. At least agree to abstain from sex during your engagement wherever you're living.
One of us is divorced. Can we still be married in the church?
In most cases, yes, but you'll probably need an annulment. In fact, most churches won't even schedule your wedding until an annulment has been granted. So go talk to a priest as soon as possible, and he'll help you get the process started. Once granted, an annulment gives you the freedom to marry in the Catholic Church.
Wait, I still have so many other questions.
If you have any additional questions regarding common items such as unity candles, cultural traditions, having small children in the ceremony, the use of pets, or options for readings and prayers. These answers will vary from church to church, so discuss them with your local priest. In the meantime, try not to get stressed or too overwhelmed while planning your wedding. The church is here to help you. Congratulations on your upcoming wedding. May it be a blessed celebration.
You mean I can have my dog at the wedding? I'm so excited. All right. Let's take a few minutes and have some table talk. There's a couple of things that on your tables. There's one diagram that says covenant contract. You might want to discuss that. And I'd ask you later maybe to take a look at this very long sheet that I copied that has to do with marriage from the Catechism. And we'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes. Let's take a few minutes now and talk to one another about what we heard tonight, what Tom and Donna shared, what Joe and Judy shared, what the video said. Go ahead. Okay, everybody. I have one question. Or no, I have more than one question, I guess. It's on. All right. Okay, we only have a few more minutes. These are probably really hard questions, so let's see. All right. This is an easy one. Can you get married in the church without getting a license? No, you cannot. You have to get a marriage license to get married in the church because the church is also part of the civil law. And so the civil law says you must have a license. So, yes, you have to have a license to get married in the church. And once you go to a priest, they'll tell you all of the things you need. Okay, why can you not receive the sacrament of communion or confirmation before you have your marriage in the church? As a young adult, you receive confirmation and communion before marriage. Yes. Okay. That's interesting. If you were, if you were just going through the normal, born into the Catholic faith, you would receive all of these sacraments. You would be fully initiated in the Catholic Church with the 3 sacraments of initiation: baptism, confirmation, and the Eucharist, by the time you're about 15 or 16. Okay, so you won't be married before that. So it's always good to do them young, because by the time you decide to get married when you're older, in your 20s or 30s, if you have not had First Communion or you not had confirmation, they will ask you to complete those sacraments because those are the initiation sacraments. So for sure you want to make that they'll ask you to please complete that. That's the reason. Yeah, Johnny. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yes. 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 You can't receive half a sacrament. You cannot receive half a sacrament. So if one person's a Catholic and you're married in the Catholic Church, both of you are married in that sacrament. That's in my case. I'm married to someone who's not Catholic. Okay, so we were married in the Catholic Church. Is a totally valid sacramental marriage. Okay, so, and I think he talked about that. Can you marry someone? Yes. And once again, it can't be a sacrament for one person and not the other. It's for both of you. It's meant for both of you. Judy? Right. Right, exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up, Judy. Okay, so let's say, and this is the case with Joe and Judy. Both of them, they were Lutheran, both Lutheran before, married in the Lutheran Church. And so when they became Catholic, did they have to have a Catholic marriage? No, because the Catholic Church recognizes the sacramentality of other religions and other civil marriages. So especially if you're both baptized. If one is not baptized, I think you mentioned that in the video, it's a little bit different. You can still marry somebody who isn't baptized, but you have to have special permission to do that in the Catholic Church. But once again, those of you that were already married and then came to RCIA together and both converted, you don't have to have your marriage blessed. You have a sacramental marriage, and we honor that. If one of you is Catholic and the other one isn't, and you were married outside the church, that's different. That's when you need a validation. Yeah, Tracy. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Yes, and I use it a lot of times in RCA because people understand that. If I say validated, they're like, I'm valid. Okay. It's a churchy term. You're basically getting married in the church. You're repeating your vows between a priest and in front of a priest and 2 witnesses. It's the same as just getting married for the first time, but we recognize the civil marriage.